That we had take a read on my comments.
So on this, I have to say, when I first saw the budget, and it's quite an increase, I just looked at the total and thought, wow, that's a lot of money, but they really did a good justification for it. Safety is an issue. I wouldn't want my sons working there alone, even though they're big boys. The turnover factor, I can see why they'd have a high turnover, and the service increases, she's documented extremely well. The only thing, when we increase it that much, then with that average, even if we need to go down next year, you can't go down too far, but.
No, and it ties into their cost of materials.
Yep.
So when I met with the librarian, I was trying to see if there was anything in that budget that could be taken out and sort of put under the town rather than the library, and there really was nothing.
I remember you talking about that, yeah.
So, because they're, everything, down to the water and the electricity, everything
Yep.
then results in materials being purchased.
Right. Anybody, any other thoughts on it? Anybody hesitant about?
I think it's pretty clean
Yeah.
and justified.
As long as there's sufficient funds in the town. then-
Yeah. So looking at the revised sheet that Debbie gave us last night, I backed out if you just take the net revenue line and then all the total of omnibus requests, we haven't approved everything, but assuming we approve this, it's 14,057,717. Then we have 716,882 left. And then for the special articles, it's 380,000, at least what I had seen so far. And I don't think they were new money articles, you said, right? And then for the annual, I counted 32,542, so we still even have over 300,000 left over in free cash. And that would just roll to next year's free
That's right.
cash, right? So,
Well, in a special town meeting, that doesn't come out of next year's revenue, that comes out of,
We do have some on the special for the police station and for the seed money for the 375th anniversary.
okay.
We do have a lot of transfers in the special from balances and prior borrowings, so that, and from other articles, so there's no drain on the overall
Yeah.
surplus revenue of the town. So overall, we are able to sustain this budget, but once again, in future years, if something happens and there are reductions, we could be faced like we were a couple of years ago when we did meet with Senator Tarr to talk about the requirement for the MAR, municipal appropriation requirement, and could maybe get a waiver, but that's once again a very drastic situation. So right now, the selectmen approved this, they accepted it for the reasons presented, and also because we could afford it in this fiscal year.
yeah. So, any further discussion on this? Do I have a-
No.
No. Do I
Not
have?
from me.
Not from you. Do I have a motion to approve the library fiscal year 14 request for $258,125?
I'll make that recommendation.
Okay, so Janet, do I have a second?
Second it.
Oh, Larry first.
No.
Okay, Larry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, approved. All right. So, then moving on to the articles, the other articles. So we'll start with the special. And,
So there are some changes from what we got last night.
Yeah, we've been working on these
yeah,
today.
Okay, I just didn't want to.
Editing, cleaning it up, for the most part.
Cost reference,
but
then.
No dollars have changed.
yep. Okay. So, So the first one is Article 6, the first one requiring a,
Are we doing the special
Oh, wait a
or
minute.
the
Article
annual?
4.
I'm sorry, it's the special. Okay, did I miss that? Okay, sorry. So Article 4. Transfer and appropriate 4,000 from line 31, Town Council of Article 5 of the annual town meeting of April 30th to be added to line 7, Selectmen's expense. This is to pay for expenses incurred to hold the May 6th, 2013 annual and special town meetings.
Is that the correct line 31? Because I looked at it, and I thought line 31 was the professional fee, and line 32 was the litigation.
I may have in the, I'll have to check that. We renumbered the budget now in fiscal 14. I have to check actually the warrant from this fiscal year, but I did have the town accountant help me check that. If it's a mistake, it is town council litigation that we're taking it from.
Right.
Okay. Okay. It's kind of a standard one. I mean, it's nothing.
This is to cover
Unusual.
printing and copying.
Yeah.
Mailing.
So do I have a motion to approve this article?
I'll make the motion.
Larry? And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passed. Then the next, see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate 3,778 from Article 11 of the January 11th, 2010 meeting.
So what is that document, or so? the
January
Jan-
11th, 2010 special town meeting to
Oh.
go in that, yes.
Special town
Okay.
meeting.
And that was for cemetery fence repair, so it's an article that was appropriated. We had a gentleman damage this historic cemetery fence, and we, through an insurance claim, received a settlement, then subsequently appropriated at a town meeting to repair it, and then we call that cemetery fence Phase 1. We had it repaired, if you remember, a year and a half ago, and then recently the cemetery commissioners wanted to restore the entire fence, so
Mhm.
there was an article on the warrant last year for CPA money to restore it. So the whole fence is down now and at the company and going to be installed, I believe, on May 6th. So now they would like to use the balance of that article money to embark on a new program that would enable them to maintain all the cemetery records electronically. They need to purchase the software and the computer. They did, I think, approach the CPA to see if this could be something that could be funded through, and apparently doesn't meet the requirements for historic restoration.
So these funds are left over from the insurance claim?
Yes, once we get that money, it's appropriated as general town money, and so it was used for the first phase of the project.
Okay, and that's what, okay.
And the software, that seems pretty expensive for a computer and software.
Apparently, they've done a lot of research on what they need to do this, and they've talked to other cemetery departments that have this program.
Okay.
I don't know anything more than that, but
Okay.
Is that all that's left in that
that should cover.
article from 2010? Because it seems like it's unusual to carry it for 3 years, okay?
Yeah, well-
And to be, we'll say 3,000, plus, I don't know if there's additional money in there, or,
It's my understanding this will clean up what we call dusty money articles. Sometimes after we finish a project, we do let the money sit there to see if it can be then reappropriated for another purpose at a future town meeting. So I believe they're cleaning out the balance of that article.
Oh,
So
okay.
should they not expend it all, that'll be, even if they have $100 left, or 200, they may transfer that out in the future for
okay,
some
so
other-
basically the article from 2010 goes away and is replaced by this article, if there's any
That's right.
funds left over, okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion that we approve Article 5?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Janet, do I have a second?
Second.
Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is Article 6, to transfer and appropriate $5,500 from line 26 of Article 5 of the 2012 annual town meeting to be used by the treasurer for the purpose of microfilming. There's an explanation below. It sounds like the right thing to do,
Right.
so.
Looks fine.
Do I have a motion that we approve Article 6?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Jamie, do I have a second?
A second.
Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So, Article 7, transfer and appropriate 10,000 from free cash to be used by the 375th Anniversary Committee for celebratory events.
I
When
don't,
is-
I just don't have a question about the money being spent. I just want to know how much money is going to be left in, how much is going to be
Right.
left in free cash
How much
after all
is
thing
in-
is said and done. Like, with this 10,000, what is that, what's the running balance so far now? We're taking out the 10,000 and,
Looking
Yeah, then the
at,
next one is 1,200, then 12,000, 3,000, 6,000.
how much are we going to have in free cash after everything is done?
304,339,
304,000?
yeah. Well, that's what I have
Yeah,
that a
calculated.
good-
We've had discussions on the fiscal team, and we do leave a substantial amount on the table.
And that's even tucking money away into
Stabilization
stabilization.
and open.
Yeah, so, I think
So
the
that's a
town's
good-
being prudent
Is
even
that a
while
good
we're.
healthy balance for us to have?
Oh,
Spending.
yes. We've had years where you're looking at every penny and every dusty money
Mhm.
article
Mhm.
that would be transferred really to the general fund if we had to. So we're in a situation where we can afford it, and there's been a strong desire in the community to have, I think it's probably almost a year worth of various events. I don't know, Bob Mary's here in the audience, he recalled the 350th. I don't think it's gonna be as much as the 350th, but they're gonna, I think, have a parade, and there's members from the scouts, the schools, the churches,
Yeah, they're planning some
There's
events,
a-
but I don't think it'll be as elaborate as the 350th.
yeah. And so this will, I guess, be used to generate a lot of fundraising.
Mhm.
In the annual, we'll get to the establishment of a revolving fund article as well for donations and sales of tickets and things like that. So this kind of gets them off the ground.
When is the town's anniversary date?
Next year,
What?
next year.
What date is there?
It's 325th, it's 375th,
What?
the 375th, it's all through the year.
Oh,
They'll be planning events during the season,
oh,
generally in the summertime into the fall.
oh.
And the medallion that's hanging on the
Yeah,
wall kind of.
July
goes to
4th.
that.
We see, we drive by the signs all the time. What date would it be?
Just don't look at it.
So do I have a motion that we approve Article 7?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Jamie and Peter, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $43,500 for the purchase of a fire department command vehicle and $7,000 for portable radios for the fire department. And to see whether this appropriation shall be met by transferring unexpended balances of funds originally bought for the following projects, which are no longer needed. What does it mean to see whether this appropriation shall be met?
These articles are written in such a way, should there be a modification in some way at the last minute, we would have a motion that would allow some flexibility in the language. So this was actually written by the bond counsel. It's the attorney that represents the financing agency.
Okay.
So, because they will make sure after the vote, they'll get a copy of the motion and the article in order to, Karen Summer will have to file that, I guess, in order to have a record of how we transferred and used it.
Okay.
So was this money borrowed already, and we've, in effect, paid it off, whatever loan there was?
Yes, some of these
associated
are
with it?
still on, in the town budget. You can see they're still in a repayment phase. But if the project has been completed and we know we're not gonna use it, even though we borrowed an amount for it, it can be used for another project, I think, the similar length in term and in nature. So, the town's financial consultant has advised the treasurer that we should be, once a project is finished, either redistributing it to a similar project, or I guess otherwise, I think we have to do some other, take some other action, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what Karen said.
We really can't leave it in the budget,
Yeah.
on the books, because it can accrue arbitrage. They don't like to see us make interest on it.
When you say similar project, can it be across different departments, or it has to be in the same?
No, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
Pertain to the same department, though we were able to sort of link some things together
Right.
from prior borrowings to sort of cobble enough to meet one of the capital requests of the fire chief. And in a way, not have to, look at other, revenue sources.
So, just so I'm clear, the money was borrowed but not spent?
Correct, they came in under budget,
So-
various,
So it was included in a bond and that
Mhm.
we're paying interest on and paying down now?
that's right.
And this is just money that wasn't paid, used
The
for whatever the
project
purchase?
was completed under estimate, what we estimated it to be.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? I forgot to mention, so there's $1,242.53 from free cash. So,
Now, if the radios and the car come in for less, the same thing would apply?
Yes, I believe so.
Were radios in the regular budget? I thought
No,
they-
he talked about that
No.
as being extras that he needed because of the
They can't
bandwidth.
talk to
narrow,
one
yeah.
another, and the
Yeah.
one that they're using is a temporary one that has to be
That's
used
right.
for the
That's right, okay.
uh,
NEMAs.
NEMA.
Or FEMAs.
And he has some portables that are not what they call narrow banded.
Right.
And that's a
Right.
new requirement as of December of last year.
And I think some of the older, the first version,
Right.
narrow
Weren't-
band
weren't
aren't
narrow
working.
enough.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm. Okay, now I remember. Okay. Do you have a motion to approve Article 8?
Yeah, make the motion, we approve Article 8.
Larry?
I'll
And
second.
and Janet? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. So Article 9, see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash, sum of $12,000 to be used by the highway surveyor for the purchase of capital equipment. And it's to purchase the bagger unit for the mower, new welder, pressure washer, edge trimmer, and pole saw.
We were saving money by doing this in the landscaping bills.
Right,
Not this total amount, but
yep.
if it works, it will pay itself off quickly.
Right, right, so it makes sense. Do I have a motion to approve Article 9?
I'll make that motion.
Jamie, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, Article 10, to see if the town will vote to transfer appropriate $3,300 from free cash to be used by the police chief to replace the existing flooring in the booking room and entryway of the police station, and to replace the existing carpeting in the interview room, offices, and hallway.
Do you think any mention should be made of, like, it's also for sanitary and safety concerns rather than it just being old and tattered? I don't know whether, some people will say, well, if it's just old and tattered, what the heck type of a thing. But if there's a, safety or sanitary concerns, person might trip over the rug.
Yes,
And
it is, that's a good
that's-
point. I will add a sentence into the explanatory note so that the townspeople are also aware that that's part of it, is
Mhm.
we're afraid people are gonna trip.
Okay. Okay, so I think that makes sense. Do I have a motion to approve Article 10?
I make a motion, we approve Article 10.
Larry, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jamie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. Article 11. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $6,000 from free cash to be used by the police chief to repair the cell block in the police station. So there's a note underneath. So we're failing the Department of Public Health's review.
I have seen that and had a discussion, and there is some bodily fluid, bloodborne pathogen issues because there are cracks that are nasty.
Okay.
Okay.
That's enough.
Yeah, no, it's
Detail for me.
Yes, it's bad.
Okay. Do I have a motion that we approve Article 11?
I make the motion.
Larry? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Janet? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No, okay. Okay.
So, Debbie, I have a question. Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
So, like all these new articles that came on, is it like the departments, do they anticipate that they're not gonna budget for everything because they know that they can check on articles afterwards to include extra stuff, like what we have here? Cause, you know, like the police department, for example, with this last thing, is that something that it was afterthought, or was it something they says, well, you know, we'll have it in an article and, you know, we'll be able to tack it on later on? Is that what's the?
Well, we actually try to encourage the department heads to follow sort of our capital improvement plan, which is in a small town, anything above $400 that, you know, is not a recurring like maintenance expense, you know, that you know, is got a limited lifespan. So this is some repairs he needed to make. It's not really part of his operation budget. So we actually don't want to build it into the operation budget. We would like these requests, you know, sometimes they could be consolidated in one article. In this case, we were running out of time. We split them up between the floor and the cell blocks, but we don't consider that to be part of just the operational budget.
And these issues have been
Okay.
there for a while, and we've actually asked them through the past about 4 years to level fund their budgets. So he hasn't had the opportunity to even get the money until this point.
Oh,
But this won't be part of the operational budget. This
No.
is off, once we do an article, it's off budget, so he'll charge this work that's being done to this article.
okay.
So I think Peter's question was, could he add it to his regular budget to get it?
And we normally would say no,
Right, it would be a
repairs
capital type
and,
expense, which becomes an article.
you know, that's a little bit beyond just the general maintenance
Yeah.
work that he has in his expense budget.
It's still a puzzle.
Well, no, I guess it's a different way of looking at things. I just, so, when you know, whenever it has to do with capital items, you just, these budgets that the department heads have only have all their operating expenses, and that's basically it for.
In some maintenance, we have to, you know, provide for some annual maintenance for heating systems and other HVAC, I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I mean, painting.
And for minor repairs,
Mm-hmm, okay.
but
Broken window or something
Yeah,
like
the-
that, they have that in their regular budget, but when you
But
get,
if-
like Debbie explained, when you get to the capital side, where it becomes a capital project over $400, then we like to see it in an article on.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Article 12, we reviewed this one last night. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $15,875 from line 163, Water Treatment Plant Interim Loan Interest of Article 6 of the 2012 Annual Town Meeting to be used by the Board of Selectmen to pay penalty issued by the Department of Environmental Protection in accordance with the administrative consent order. So the penalty was $25,875. We think they'll, if we comply with what they've required, they'll suspend $10,000, so we're down to $15,000. We have to pay it. Nobody likes it.
But I'm surprised that they would allow us to pay only the 15.
Well, we're paying 10,000 for the procedures to be
Mhm.
written.
Correct.
So it's.
Right, but that doesn't mean that the procedures will meet their standards. I'm just surprised that they don't bill us the 25,000, and then when the operating procedure meets their requirements, that we're reimbursed the 10.
To be perfectly honest with you, Larry, I don't think the state is that sophisticated. They really want.
Glad you said that on TV and not me.
If that 25,000 was to go in there, it would disappear. They would never come back.
Okay,
So basically what they're doing is they want us to have those procedures in
Right.
place.
Yes.
And it's required.
And we
basically,
should
by
have them.
Federal and state law.
right,
And the carrot to do that is the $10,000 dangling out front.
yes,
So you do this, we'll take that $10,000. and give it
Right.
back to you.
So
So
why
I mean,
do,
that's how they work, but.
okay.
why do we have to have that in an article anyway? Why can't, you know, because if it's an article where, I mean, shouldn't this come out of the water department's own, like, if free cash or something, then can you do that, or? you know?
But it certainly could have, there
it
happen to
Still has to be
be,
appropriated.
there's still funds
some
in
form.
this,
Oh, it's.
in this interim loan interest line. So the money, the selectmen felt that because the water department actually has sufficient funds, that it should come from the water budget. It's the selectmen's responsibility as the chief executive officer of the town to make sure that the town is in full compliance. We had to vote, I had to sign this order, and it was, otherwise we'd be in litigation with the DEP over it in court, and it wasn't worth it. I think the selectmen agreed that there was a problem, and that the message has been sent by the DEP that the Board of Selectmen needs to get in control of this particular department and focus almost 100% of its resources on making sure that this kind of thing never happens again.
And the consent order doesn't go to the water board, it comes to the
Right.
Board of
Right.
Selectmen.
Right.
So, and that's where they place it.
And we, in order to meet the requirements as well, we have a emergency response report that needs to be filed documenting the incident and what happened and what phone calls were made, and a emergency response plan, which the water department has such a plan. It's about this big, deals with everything to do with emergencies, and that needs to be updated and provided a copy to the DEP, as well as in the consumer confidence report that the water customers receive from the water department. Periodically, there's a statement that identifies anything that was found in routine water testing. And in this one, there's an order that there be some language depicting the situation and what the results of the various tests came out. So those three items have to be met, and if they're not met by the certain time frame, then the DEP will start sanctioning fines on the town, as well as if we don't fine.
So, do I have a motion that we approve Article 12?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'll give it to
Pete
Peter.
can have it.
And a second?
Second.
Larry? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So, Article 13, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $5,000 from Article 23 of the May 2001, wow, special town meeting, Town Hall roof leak repair to be used by the Board of Selectmen to repair the ceiling in the Town Hall auditorium, and to repair the limited-use elevator, and to remove a window above the elevator.
Which is also leaking.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully it hasn't leaked since 2001.
Well, no, it's a little, what is it, about 2 years ago we discovered it. But
So this sounds straightforward. It's
Yep.
it's repairs on the town hall. Do I have a motion that we approve Article 13?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Jamie, and a second?
Second.
Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? All right. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $6,256.74 for the removal of the fire escape at the Town Hall Annex. see whether this appropriation shall be met by transferring the unexpended balances of funds originally borrowed for the following projects, which are no longer needed. So this is like the fire department one where we borrowed money to do this prior project.
How do we meet the fire codes without the fire escape?
This has actually been cited on our annual insurance inspection to remove this because it's actually not needed.
Oh, okay.
It was for the building when it was a school.
Ah.
Bob will help me out on this one.
Yeah.
But the building inspector has,
Mm.
There are two
Yeah.
egresses in each room. It's already today,
Okay.
you know,
So
there always
we're-
were, but because it was a school, the state came along and made a requirement that there had to be fire escapes between the two rooms.
Right.
On the second floor and the first floor, so they could get down. And it was only required because it was a school.
Okay.
No longer a school, so, and the insurance company's very nervous about it. They don't think it's safe, and I have to agree with them. I was up on that escape not more than about a year ago, and it was really shaky.
Yeah. So it's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you, sorry.
6256 from this prior project and then transferring 5,500 from Article 15 of the 2007 special town meeting, town hall roof replacement. So the total is 11,756 and 74.
So will the fire escape be sold for scrap metal, and will there be anything coming back for that?
well, I think
Good
it will
idea.
be part of, we have to get prices and that would be included in the cost to have it hauled away. So the company that would get it would be able to factor that into their overall price. For us, it's a nuisance and for us to load it and try to get the scrap on it, whereas the company that removes it can factor that into their price.
We'll hopefully get credit on.
Yeah, I would think-
To,
They would be able to keep it as a condition and just
Right,
take it
and
away.
then take a cost,
Yeah.
reduce the cost of the actual.
That's right.
Yep. Okay, do I have a motion that we approve Article 14?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Janet, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? 15. To transfer and appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund, Community Historic Resources Reserve Account, that's a mouthful, and/or the Community Preservation Fund Unreserved Account, the amount of $1,000 to be used by the Board of Cemetery Commissioners for the preservation and restoration of the giant copper beech tree, which is reported to be more than 130 years old.
it was actually planted in 1850. I don't know if you've seen it in the fall, but it's a beautiful tree.
Mm.
The leaves turn a nice, almost purple copper color.
Oh, pretty.
It's really, and I think there's only 2 of those trees left in the town of Raleigh.
How long, what's the
Wow.
life on those trees?
I really don't know, Peter.
At
I know
least
that's a medicine
130 years.
problem.
I know, well, I'm just thinking about
Probably.
$1,000, what if the tree dies?
Yeah, it's probably
You know.
long past its
It's pine, but-
usual life. How much is in that community preservation? Because I noticed that, you know, it gets cited in a lot of the articles, and it's like about 400,000 is spent all over the place on it.
But they have certain projects that they're allowed to spend money on, and this is apparently one of
There are
them.
4 categories that they have. And it's
Right, but I mean,
actually-
how much, where does that fund appear? Is that the
It's in-
453,440? That's the funding for the whole thing?
That's what they're spending this year, approved spending for this year, I'm assuming. Did you add it up to see?
Well,
Do we see that? Any documentation from them?
No.
Is that what you're?
No, I mean, that's one of
The
them.
town account would keep track of it on a separate account.
Actually, Laura Hamilton is the CPA administrator. She staffs that committee. I can ask her to get that information to you. All I have is what's in the,
But that's like separate funding from the
Yeah.
rest of the town?
it's
Yeah.
a 3% surcharge on the property tax bills, and then apparently
State
they're
reimbursement.
expecting 30% in matching funds in fiscal 14. all the recording fees at the Registry of Deeds. This goes back to, I think, when this law was passed,
Early
10,
90s, late
Mhm.
90s, 2000.
2000 or so, and I forget who was the governor at that time. Was it Swift? Maybe, I'm not sure. So the legislature came together to try to meet sort of a three-pronged interest, affordable housing, historic restoration, and open space protection. And it came under this one law, and if a municipality adopted the law, local option, and you could adopt it up to a 3% surcharge, it could be limited to different variables, 1, 2%, or a cap on income, or some other exclusions. Town of Raleigh adopted it for 3%. And at the time, of course, the matching funds was 100% of what was raised. And then over the years,
Shifted.
when the housing
Good old
market
days.
crashed.
Went down to zero.
And people weren't selling houses, the recording fees were getting down at the Registry of Deeds every time you recorded a house. So less funds, so the state,
And more towns got.
Jumped
that
into
was
it.
Out there. and
Right,
into it.
right.
We were
One
right
of
up
the- one of the
front and
first,
came
yeah.
through. There weren't very many when we
Yeah.
joined. And what they really wanted to do is they wanted to build affordable housing. But the legislature was smart enough to know that if they just put that article in, it wouldn't work.
Uh-huh.
So they added the historic preservation and the open space. And Raleigh has done very well with the open space portion of that. We saved numerous acres of land.
that's right.
Yeah.
For open space. It was
Yep.
good land. I mean, the biggest project was the Bradstreet Farm,
Yeah.
and that's got a mile of river frontage on the Raleigh River
Yeah.
in an area of environmental concern, the salt marsh.
Mhm.
And that was one of the feathers in our cap by being able to do that project.
Yep.
But they're 453,000, that's not part of the estimated local receipts of
No.
a million, so
No,
that's.
It's a separate fund. Is it in
Okay.
the balances that the town accountant gives us? I'm thinking it is. but
She,
I
it
can't
is
remember.
on that, she
Okay.
does have to record that. If you want to look for some more specific information, Laura Hamilton would be able to provide that to you, but she, you know, it functions as an any other town budget line, because it is approved at the town meeting.
So it's not taking down this balance. It's a separate account or separate. It's separate
it's on-
money
Right, but I
that
mean,
they
it
have
doesn't-
to spend on certain types of
Mhm.
things. So they look each year what they can do.
But without seeing the balances, it's hard to say whether these are good.
Exactly, I mean, we have
Because I know that
no,
there is.
no idea of whether, I mean, it looks like they're close, they're about 50,000 near their limit, if that's the case. But-
I doubt it.
and-
I doubt if they're up to the limit. I mean, they look at these projects and they get generally quite a few
Mhm.
applications when they do it. And I'm sure they're watching their
Yeah, I'm
bottom
sure.
line,
Yeah.
top line, whichever one you want to call it.
Right.
And they won't overspend, I'm sure of that.
Mhm.
Right, but like if the 453,000 is their funding, Article 17 in the annual is 251,000. And the special, Article 16 is 23,000, and Article 17 is 135,000. So that's like 400 of the 453,000.
Yeah, I think they probably
And
got,
I don't know if I would assume that there are other expenses that maybe they don't have any need to put articles for. I don't know, because I mean, I have no idea what's
it's
running
appropriate.
on.
The only thing they can take, and the way it's set up is in historic preservation, they have to set aside 10%.
Right.
In the open space, they have to set aside 10%. What's the other one? Is what the third one?
The open space, the housing, and the.
Oh, the housing. We also have to put 10% aside in the housing. Then there's the recreation side. And that's when you just read it, and it mentioned the unreserved account, resources reserve account. All the rest of the funds that come in go into that reserve account. So they can take money out of that to go along with the open space and the historic preservation and so forth. So they have to set aside that 10% amount and have to spend it on that particular project. that type of project, or historic preservation as an example.
Yeah.
So that's how they budgeted down. I mean, I know this because I was chairman of the committee when it was first formed. So we would look at it all, look at a project if it was worthy, we would recommend it, get it voted at town meeting. At that time, 100% reimbursement from the state, we couldn't beat it.
Right.
Really couldn't. It was the best show in town. It has dwindled down, but we're still getting reimbursements, and there aren't much out there to get reimbursements from these days. So it is helping us.
Yep.
I just think going forward, it would be nice to see details from that group, because you were asked to recommend,
Recommend it,
and we
yeah.
we have nothing to really base it
Yeah,
on,
so-
other than
Yep.
that
Like
these
a
are the
balance
numbers
sheet.
there,
I think
so.
in the annual one, I think they're setting aside that 10% requirement.
Well, because they do have a lot of
Right.
debt for the Brad Street
Where's the-
property.
Yes.
And I
Right.
don't have any sense of where we are in that, how much is still owed. So it's just that there's not enough information to see the whole picture.
How do some of these things get up on there? Like, does someone say, you know, does they have a special committee that comes together that says, okay, we'll try to see if we can make this voted for special preservation, like the, you know, like who decided, like in the Commons, to spend all that money on those trees? I remember that they were gonna be spending like $90,000 on,
Well, yeah, there's
you
a
know, from-
common tree committee that
Mhm.
formed and put together the project itself. And then they would go to the CPC, Community Preservation Committee, and present that project. And the committee is represented by a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the Planning Board, a member of the Board of Zoning, and several others. So there's various departments in town that sit on that committee. Housing
Conservation.
Authority has a
Conservation, open
conservation,
space,
yeah.
planning, selectmen,
Housing Authority too.
housing
has a
authority.
member. So they look at this and
Historic.
decide, first of all, they look at what they have for in funds,
Mhm.
and then decide how much they can give. One of the things they encourage very strongly is private funding. Grants or whatever, if you can add some money to the project itself and help, they look at that favorably. They actually have a form that has to be filled out.
Well, that was behind that property down by Stackyard Road there. There was some, the bird sanctuary, whatever they call it, preservation, whatever they call themselves, was getting money to,
The
went to
Audubon.
Audubon Society, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good deal too. That's a beautiful, I don't know if you had a chance to walk the trails down there, but it's a beautiful piece of property. Absolutely gorgeous.
But everybody, you know, who's on this committee probably is pushing for their own, you know, agenda,
Well, to
what
some
they have,
degree,
then
but
how
they're
does,
all- but there again, they're only one member. It's not like they have a majority on the board, so.
so they have to come to a consensus then?
Oh, yes, well, definitely. Yeah, the board has to vote it.
Must be interesting.
And
So,
I can- when we get to the 135,000 that Larry mentioned, we got permission from the Historic District Committee to put cement board, siding, the new clapboard that's cement, on the town, on the center school. And the CPC came back and said, no, you can't do that. And then, lo and behold, under federal requirements, cement board is not authorized to be used on antique buildings, historic buildings. So we have to
Oh, wow.
revise our proposal.
Right.
so that would have been once and done.
We were gonna get it done for just about 100,000 with everything we wanted to do. The cement board, the insulation, the trim, the painting, the gutters.
Uh-huh.
Now it's up to 135,000. So, it's just one of those things. But the requirements of the DCP is not allowed, so we gotta go with red cedar clapboard. So,
All right, so back to this Article 15 for $1,000 for the beech tree. Do I have a motion that we approve this?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Larry, do I have a second?
One second.
Jamie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? All All right, Article 16, so this is what Bob was just talking about, the 135,000 to be transferred and appropriated from the Community Preservation Fund unreserved account to be used by the Board of Selectmen for the preservation and restoration of the old center school. Do I have a motion that we approve this article?
I'll make the motion.
Well, hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
It went from 23,200 to 135,000?
Where are you looking?
Well, I was looking at what was handed out last night.
I think the order might have been changed. There
That's
was
a different
one,
article.
yeah.
That's
Like
for,
I said, it's
Okay.
We were never at 23,000.
Yeah.
Article 17.
Oh, okay, 16 was, the old 16 was deleted, I
Was
guess.
something else, yeah.
All right. Okay, sorry.
So,
Karen, I did speak to the treasurer, the accountant that left, and she said that, you know, there's, in the CPA, there's in excess of $1 million that actually hasn't been allocated, and that's probably conservative.
yeah.
So these are funds that would come out of that million.
And they kind of have to spend it. If they don't spend it, if they're just accumulating, then,
Yeah, so they do
They can-
reach out and try to have people look for projects that
Yeah.
qualify. So if that is a concern right now, I'm certainly will make sure we get some type of financial statement on where things stand, but
Yeah,
there are funds.
Okay, that's good.
well, we have the March 31st statement of
The balance
balances, so
on-
that would
from the
show
accounting.
exactly what they have, so. Okay, so do I have a motion that we approve Article 16? Janet?
I approve.
Okay. And a,
Motion.
You
I
motion?
to approve.
And she seconded
and,
it,
do I
too.
have a
No,
second?
no.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, Article 17, see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to transfer the 5.3 acre Bishop property. Is this a... This is not a money article.
This is not a money article.
So we can skip this one.
Well, can I ask a question on this? Like, what is the benefit of putting it into, under the control of the Conservation Commission? And, I mean,
It's actually required.
Yeah.
okay,
We, as you probably know, put a cell tower up in back of the ball field on Havel Street.
uh-huh,
Okay, that was conservation land. So in order to get that tower in there, we had to replicate the conservation land that was disturbed by the cell tower.
okay,
This is the piece of land that we got. It was actually donated to the town by Mr. Bishop. So that has to go back into the conservation section of the open space.
okay. Thank you.
Just a question for Debbie. Last night's Article 16 in your handout, that has been deleted?
Yes,
Okay.
today I received a written request from Raleigh Historical Society to withdraw their CPA article.
Okay.
So Article 18, see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $20,000 from the cemetery sale of lots and graves account to be used by the Board of Cemetery Commissioners to expand sections G and H to the cemetery.
Where does the income from the cemetery sales and lots and graves account, where does that show up? Is that it, part of the estimated local receipts?
No, this is, this would be off-budget, separate account that's created under the general bylaws when somebody goes to the town clerk and purchases a grave lot. And so it goes into a special account. So it's off the town budget, it's in this special account. And so the cemetery board needs, in order to spend it, an appropriation from town meeting to do that. And they have a sort of a long-range plan to expand G and H, which is to, if we face it out this window to the right,
Way over to the right, the new section is.
You'll see where
the
the-
side is to the right.
continuing clearing out the trees.
How many special accounts like this are there?
I would have to ask the town accountant, some of these are authorized under state law that don't need an annual authorization like the revolving funds do, but they're allowed under various either finance, the finance statutes, or like in this one could be under the cemetery statute. I'm not sure, I'd have to research it, but I do know we have a cemetery bylaw that allows the charging of those fees for the purchase of the lot,
There's also a perpetual care fund that
which
they have
is
control of.
another one we'll take up at the annual warrant.
Yeah.
So they're particular sometimes to a particular municipal program function, like cemetery has these unique accounts to sort of make the place somewhat self-sustaining. Losing my voice here.
Okay.
So do I have a motion that we approve Article 18?
I'll make the motion.
Larry, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jamie? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any nays? No, okay. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate 6,000 from line 163, water treatment plant and term loan interest of Article 6 of the annual town meeting of last year for the purpose of purchasing and repairing the fence at Well Station 3, purchase of new keys to the storage tank and well stations 2, 3, and 5, and to update the existing alarm system at the 401 Central Street, the storage tank, and at well stations 2, 3, and 5, or to take any other action. So we went over this last night.
Mhm.
Looks fine. I'll make the motion that we accept it.
Any,
Well, it's just
Preemptive.
discouraging that there's so many items coming out of this water treatment interim loan interest line item. It was meant to pay off the cost of the treatment plant. And I'm not, I don't know enough about the department to say that these aren't required expenses, but it's just discouraging to see that it's money being used that was supposed to pay for another purpose. So I don't know, I'm not sure what the right answer is.
I mean, I agree that there were lines in the debt last year and the year before that weren't needed. It wasn't money that they actually needed for debt payments, but
I mean, I suppose it's kind of all money, and they're putting quite a bit into free cash into the capital fund. If they need this money and we don't allow this, and it comes out of free cash, it's just less money to go into that other account. So I guess you can look at it multiple ways, but I just,
One thing we did work with the fiscal team, the town accountant, the treasurer, and the assessor, was to try to bring out the fact that the water department is no different than the police department or the fire department. When they need items, they're not going to bury it in an expense line under one big expense line. When the selectmen last year had asked for the breakout on the expenses, it was clear then, there was an assumption when the selectmen approved that budget last year that this is basically what that expense budget is made of, and then come to find out, as we all know, that didn't really work out to be that case when we discovered the building inside the garage. So what we did explain to them is they have to follow the capital improvement policy and funding of the town like everybody else. So there is a concern about security at water facilities, and regardless of what they've done in the past, the DEP does want those well stations secured. They want policies on who has access and keys and things like that, and that's why the selectmen feel that that is probably the greater priority. The fact that they do have to come to town meeting now and make these requests like all the other departments have to do is the only thing I can say that's probably positive, is that this stuff is out there, the people have to look at it, they have to vote on it, it has to be discussed at your meeting. Whereas in the past, we would never see these kind of articles at all for anything. Trucks and things like that were questions about how they've even purchased those out of expense.
Well, hopefully they'll treat that membrane the same way, because, if they're just gonna, take it out of, you know, the stabilization fund and they don't account, you know, put money aside, you know, that's not gonna be, it's gonna be hard to absorb that kind of hit in 1 year, you know, if it's not
Well,
budgeted straight out for,
the physical team is leaning on him very heavily to start putting stuff aside into it, and actually we're creating a new account with this annual town meeting.
But I
The
suspect
stabilization account.
some of this work associated with 19 has already been done. I mean, when you drive past the well by the ball field, clearly there's a new gate and there's fencing around the buildings. So I suspect that some of this has already been done and.
There, this is, the fence is, that needs to be repaired is at well station number 3.
Okay. All right.
Can I just question the wording? It says, number 2, for the purchase of new keys for the storage tank and, well, should be at. And then number 3, to update the existing alarm system at 401 Central Street. I think the rest of that, the storage tank and at wells, number 2, 3, and 5, I think that should be struck, shouldn't it?
No, because we need the security system there also.
Right.
Oh,
It's
so
an
the
alarm
alarm
system.
system is at the
Different
water
keys.
department,
Yeah.
at the storage tank, and
Right.
at well, okay.
Well, the storage tank
Okay,
has
gotcha. Just sounded weird.
security system, needs security.
Okay,
With various gates and valves that they need access to on the outside of the tank. And the stations have
Okay.
burglar and fire alarm systems. And what they're trying to do is get a system that will report back to 401 Central Street.
okay.
And also page or call the standby person.
Chief Broderick,
Problem.
Chief Broderick went on a field trip with Laura and looked at a lot of the different places, and some of the alarm systems are functioning and greatly past their shelf life, and
Okay.
there's some that are not functioning or set up in such a way that they're going to be protected from weather conditions.
Okay. So do I have a motion that we approve Article 19?
I'll make the motion again.
Larry? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jamie? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. Article 20. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $23.52 from line 149, Water Department wages of Article 6 of the annual town meeting of April 30th, 2012, to be added to line 148, business manager salary of Article 6 of the annual town meeting, for a total appropriation of $52,024.96. Personally, I don't think this is appropriate. In the private sector, when managers are out, the expectation is that people just step up and reprioritize and fill in. And they don't get a portion of that manager's wage, they get to keep their job. So I don't see the reason for any bonus to be paid. And,
that's common practice, I think, in government, you know, non-profit, I mean, so I know, you know.
Really?
I'm not saying, I'm not condoning it, but I'm just saying that that's part of, you know, the nature of the business, I think, you know,
This-
in government.
But is this a
So-
union position or a non-union?
non-union.
Non-union.
So it is discretionary to do this?
That's right. We did need someone to sign off on some of the, I think it was the state revolving loan documents during the 2-month absence of the water superintendent. And we did need somebody to function as a department head during this particular 2-month period to offer supervision to bargaining unit employees. So there was a need to have an acting superintendent.
But isn't that need there? I mean, maybe not for 2 months, but for vacation, sick. I mean, shouldn't there be 2 people that are able to sign? It shouldn't be an extraordinary.
Well, as I understood, the initial reason was the state revolving loan documents, and I'm sorry, this is a kind of, I didn't have the full knowledge of it. I was told needed the signature of the water superintendent and not the Board of Water Commissioners. So it seemed logically that the business manager would do that. And what the water board decided to do was to make the business manager the acting superintendent to handle the day-to-day administrative responsibilities of the department.
So it just seems to me that there's a need, an ongoing need for this, even if it's not for an extended period of time. So for signatures, things like that. I mean, is this now a, like, does she have approval, authorization to approve and sign off on things going forward? Or was that just for the 2-month interim period?
Until the superintendent came back from his leave of absence. So once he resumed his position back, because there actually was not that much opportunity to plan due to the nature of his medical absence. It was quite sudden and unexpected on the town's part, as I understand it, and there was a lot of things that needed to be done and supervision given to the other employees, and this was a decision that the water board made to make an acting superintendent.
But the business manager, if the business manager is acting as the accountant too, she can't sign. There has to be a segregation of duties too. You know, if, can't sign on, if that person's doing accounts receivable, they're not supposed to be also, in charge of the money too. It's supposed to be broken up, from an auditing point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Well, yeah, I know that the business manager operates sort of as an internal, mid-level accounting level. Certainly doesn't function as the town accountant. More or less to be internally keeping the books, but not acting as the town accountant on the other end of checking it under
Okay, so
and
that's-
signing off on the bills. The town accountant still signs off on water
There's actually
department.
several steps it has to follow.
And I believe it's still
Okay.
the water board that actually signs the bills payable and the
Right.
payroll. As I understood, there were some documents that needed to be signed on a regular basis, so that the water board made that decision.
They basically come in to the town accountant, reviewed by the town accountant's office, come down here,
Mhm.
signed and reviewed by the board of selectmen, and then it's shipped over to the treasurer's office, reviewed there, and the checks are cut. So
Okay.
there's 3 different entities looking at all of those documents and bills and payrolls, not before they actually get paid.
Okay.
Well, it seems like a long-term plan needs to be put in place to have the business manager have authorization and not have it be an extraordinary event. And, I mean, the other question is what happened in the highway department when, the town surveyor was out.
Right.
In that case, I assume that responsibility to sign and review the payrolls and sort of provide some daily supervision. And in this case, with the Board of Water Commissioners, it's a little bit different. They had made that decision based on what they identified was needed in the department at the time.
Yeah, it is 2 different scenarios, because the Board of Water Commissioners are elected positions,
Right.
which we have no control over. The highway surveyor is an elected position, but he was the one that had the problem. So it would then fall back onto Debbie to kind of take that over on an interim basis to keep an eye on it, because the rest of those employees are not elected.
I mean, I see this as someone had to be heading off the administrative part of it, but it's not like the business manager can just jump in and be a superintendent. Shouldn't suddenly have the background and expertise that a superintendent has. It's more the office stuff, keeping it running. So I personally don't see that it's warranted. Do I have a motion to either recommend or not recommend Article 20?
I mean, I think.
Or do you want to have more discussion?
No, I don't know. I kind of like, disagree on that one, you know. I don't know.
What was, I mean, do we know what this amount of money is? Is that the amount of money?
The 2,000, that's the pay difference.
Would that bring her salary up to what the superintendent would make for that 2-month period
For
of
the,
time?
it was the
So
difference
it's a full
between the
salary?
2-month period. And initially, they had costed out because a lot of things were necessitating her to be there longer periods of time, working on weekends. They had originally costed out that it was going to be significantly higher based on the time, if you broke it down by days worked. They decided just to go for the difference for the, I believe it was 60 days that she was covering, and the difference in the salary between the two for that 2-month period. That's how they came to that number.
But she's not paid by the hour, she's paid a salary, right?
She is salary. So it's the difference of the 2-month period of time, the difference in salary between the two.
I mean, when you,
Took out the extra time that.
when you consider how much she's getting, I mean, getting paid for the position, it's like, you know, that's one position you could probably rationale and say that position's, you know, my opinion is, it seems fair or even under, but, you know, some of the other positions I might not. I mean, I don't think $2,300 in the scheme of things is that much money, you know. I mean, there's other things in the budget
It's more the principle of
that I
it to
would-
me. I don't know.
Well,
I think it's trying to be
Mm.
equitable for all the town employees.
Right. We have other vacancies, maybe not in the manager positions, but other people have vacancies and they're covering. They don't get any bonus for that.
Well, but we also don't have the unique problem with the water department that this person has been helping with, trying to resolve, when there weren't too many others that were.
I mean,
Trying
Laura
to
has
make it
been in
count.
all the meetings, you know, talking with all the commissioners, and some of them would be, you know, on the few that I went to, they would be beating up on her and stuff like that, and she was, you know, I think that she went above and beyond what her regular job is, you know, to be in those meetings and, you know, and taking the brunt of the, you know, we'll leave out the individuals that were
Right.
giving her a tough time, but,
But also, you know, still working with everybody.
But, I mean, on the other side, she is the business manager. She was sent there to manage the accounting
Right.
and provide better oversight because the selectmen had identified that there were issues. That was what she was tasked with, and we have all these problems. And I have to wonder if she was working overtime hours, how much was it to look into all these problems that shouldn't have happened? I don't know.
well, I don't think, is the business manager required to sit in on those meetings, or is it the superintendent that's required to sit? Or is
Typically, the
it-
superintendent.
I don't, the business
Hmm.
manager's not required to sit on
To
meetings.
sit in on what made the water.
The water board meetings, she was
Uh-huh.
sitting in, you know, for whatever, the last month and a half, right?
She's been there. for
Yeah,
all
so,
of
I
them.
mean, that's,
Mm.
even that alone is, you know, is, I don't know, but it's, that's just my opinion, you know, but I think there's other things in this budget if we wanted to look at and say, you know, I don't think that's really one of them, but, I don't know.
There was just one point, if I could just speak from a personnel point of view. In this particular department, we did need to have a supervisor present with the employees, and somebody that was monitoring when time cards would be punched and what, you know, when signing off approval of vacation time, or if somebody was out sick or something. So there was no, because there's a water board, and they're not responsible for day-to-day operations, there did need to have someone that could supervise the employees in that department, that would approve any time off or schedules or things like that. And there was, nobody, the business manager didn't have that responsibility. And I think that may have been another consideration of the water board, was to then make sure that the employees in the union who report to the superintendent could not then say to the business manager, well, I don't need to file my vacation request with you, you're not the superintendent. But if she was given that title, then she would have to sign off on that. So as a formality, that kind of functioned importantly in that department, unlike the highway situation where I would receive a call that, we're going to be off, I'm taking vacation. So in that regard, I think was another consideration of the water board to have a person with that title.
And the other issue was the fact of what we were going through for those couple of months. And the DEP needed a contact person, and they would not talk to a regular employee. They wanted somebody who had a little bit of authority. So I think that was another consideration that the water board had, to put her as the assistant so that they would be at that contact path with the DEP.
Well, I personally think that with the increases that the superintendent and the business manager are slated to get, that there should be coverage between the two going forward that's clearly defined and covers vacation, sick time, and any other outage so that this doesn't happen again. And I'm not disputing that maybe Laura did put in a lot of time and a lot of hard work and, went above and beyond. But I don't think that every time that there should be this extraordinary event where someone has to have authority to sign. It's not good management for the department to only have one person.
There is a meeting
authorized.
tomorrow night, and I will bring that
Yeah, I
up,
think
because that is a very good
this is
point.
like a one-time event.
Yes.
But there's vacation time, like Janet
It's-
pointed out, there's
Right,
plenty of
and-
other
and that's
times
a
when the
very good
superintendent
point,
wouldn't
too.
be there.
Right.
So if it's a concern, if it was a concern then, it should always be a concern, and it shouldn't be to justify this situation.
I
Right.
will bring that
Right.
up tomorrow.
If, God forbid, another incident happens, you can't wait for somebody to get back from vacation to
Please don't say that.
be doing something. Okay, do I have a motion one way or the other regarding Article 20
Now, to put it on the table, I'll make the motion
to recommend it?
to recommend it.
And I'll
Okay.
second it.
Larry and Peter, all in favor?
Aye.
And I will vote nay. All right, Article 21, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $1,200 from line 163, water treatment plant interim loan interest, for the purpose of purchasing 2 new filing cabinets.
That seems expensive, $1,200 for 2 file cabinets if you want to talk about something. What are these made as, platinum gold or something?
Well, she pointed out that she wants those, but, the whole question comes, why are we storing paper? Why aren't things being stored electronically? I mean,
think a lot of their paperwork is hard to store electronically, particularly site plans and
but
things
they
like
talk
that.
about having maps of those available in all their cars, and that's why they needed iPads, and,
But I mean, when they got new projects coming in, there's always drawings and.
No, I agree,
plans and
but-
things like that,
I think that you have to have a system so that you store, and then you archive, or you store electronically and dispose of.
Yeah, I think
So
so.
I'm not,
Hmm.
I just think,
The scanner for those 40 by 80 plans are probably gonna be a lot more expensive.
You're right, I was gonna
It's
say,
just
the next
$1,200
thing, the
filing
next
cabinet.
article you'll see is for the microfilming or electronic storage for all this stuff, so you're gonna get hit one way or the other.
yeah, but in 2 years, you're gonna be coming back for 2 more 4 highs. So,
Do those filing cabinets cost that much?
It
Seems-
I couldn't tell you, I really don't know. We bought these so many years ago, I couldn't remember.
Well, last night when they were here, they were saying they were like 600 apiece.
566 or
Right.
something like that.
and I think it was when I was on the school committee, but they used to go to vendors who would get this kind of stuff out of buildings, office buildings that were being refurbished, and get them at a very
Right, or
discounted price.
downsized.
So
Mhm.
I don't know if that's being looked into. I'm not sure that they need to have brand new ones. I think if they could get perfectly fine ones that had been previously used, it would be, should be okay. But just my side commentary. And again, it's coming from the interim loan.
Right. I mean, I agree. It does seem like a lot of money for 2 file cabinets. And I wonder, I mean, wouldn't this be the kind of thing that should be covered in the regular budget?
We actually said no.
Oh, you said no, okay.
Based on what all the other town employees do. I mean, we feel in the expense budget, if it's the end of June and maybe you have a broken chair in the office and you've got enough in your expense budget, you haven't, you know, you're not close to the end, maybe you could buy a chair or something. But we believe if it's over $400, it's got, you know, sort of a shelf life of 3+ years or more. They need to start coming out and addressing this and not burying things in their expense budget. Because if it's in there for $1,200, as it originally was in the first round, and I know Bob Stone's spoken time and time again about how that meeting went, then to say every year you're gonna spend
Right,
$1,200 on file cabinets. So every other department, as we've seen in other articles, has to come out and say, you know, hey, this is what we need to the townspeople. And you know, an expenditure like this in your home would be, you know, significant. We feel that it's significant enough. If they really need it, it needs to go in an article and not be part of their operational budget.
And there's a lot of good things that have come out of the fiscal team, and this level of transparency is certainly one of them.
I do think things like this, even though it's a small amount of money, all these water articles are going to get a lot of attention from townspeople who are upset about their bills and upset about everything that's been in the news.
Well, especially the one about the legal matter there, that's gonna
Yeah.
be the one that's really gonna stick out.
Yeah.
Whatever that one's, penalty issued by the Department of Environmental Protection. Well, it's gonna, you're gonna have a lot of people upset at this meeting. And you guys are gonna have to defend up on the stage.
My defense is very simple. If we default on that
Yeah.
fine by 30 days, it's $1,000 a day after that.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And that doesn't take long to get very huge.
Absolutely.
So the money has to be appropriated.
Absolutely.
And that's the law, right? You have to appropriate, is that what you're saying? This is
Yes.
appropriated?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do we want to vote on this? Do we want to think about it? Do you want to go back to the water department and ask them if they can buy used, or?
Well, because we're up against a time constraint, if we don't do anything, then basically we're,
We recommend from the
Recommend a
floor.
floor.
From the floor.
Yeah, we'd do that. So, I mean, that's not a big deal. But
Well, what happens if, I mean, is this money specifically for 2 file cabinets? And if they can get them cheaper, then they don't get to spend the rest of the money?
So yeah, it'll be in a balance in that article that could be transferred, and it would once again require a town meeting vote to transfer it to another, you know, article or to a budget line, to some other, I mean, it's locked, essentially. They do.
So
If they're file cabinets, the invoice comes in and is paid.
Mhm.
You can't come back for another 2 file cabinets or anything. It's a balance that would be in there.
So that's good. I mean, then it's
Yeah,
a
I
good
mean, I
reason to
would-
have it in an article.
I would like to see if there was an opportunity to buy used. Pretty sure when I went to the Byfield Fire Department tour, they had a lot of fire equipment, office equipment from some vendor.
Mhm.
So there's more than one place that's doing it, but it's not for, I don't think it's, we can mandate it, but that would be my strong
No.
suggestion.
But we still
No, I
have to
agree.
follow the procurement law. It's not like myself, if I wanna go out and buy something, I go to Home Depot and they say, okay, it's this price over here. I go up the street to Lowe's and I say, okay, it's this price here, and I make a decision, I'm gonna buy one or the other. In the government side, we have to follow the procurement law, so we have to get multiple bids or multiple quotes.
But they can request from certain vendors if they
Mhm.
choose to.
Yep.
If the total cost is under 5,000, it's, the law says sound business practices, so we encourage at least, you know, two quotes or researching to a couple of vendors on something like that to make sure you're getting the best value for the price.
Doesn't the state have, like, you can do procurement, you can, go on the database
Yeah,
and
you
you
go on
can,
the state
that's,
contract.
yeah, that's
just
what.
like you would do
Yeah.
at your office. So we go to OSD and check up and see if there's file cabinets
Yeah.
that may be competitive
So did they-
with whatever I don't know what,
Did they do that, do you know if she
I-
did that
I
in
don't.
this case? Okay.
The only one I did hear her mention was Staples. I don't know where else.
Because you're required by law, I think, right? If it's over a certain amount that you have to go through.
if it's over
OSD with the,
5,000 and up,
5,000,
you
yeah.
get the three prices, so, and under, and we have our own town procurement policy as well that matches what the state says, but we do encourage sound business practices to, and something like that, to get a couple of prices.
So Jamie, are you passing on all this? Good. Will you pass on all this?
I'm
ready. Okay.
I'm ready.
So,
Then-
do we want to approve Article, do I have a motion to approve Article 21, and Jamie will carry our feedback back?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. So Janet, do I have a second?
Second.
Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No. Okay, Article 22, to transfer 5,000 from line 163 for the purpose of purchasing emergency safety equipment. To the discussion that we had last night on this, it is surprising that, it was surprising to me to learn that they don't have any of the safety equipment yet. It's not a matter of replacing, so it hasn't been a priority,
Right.
even though a kitchen and lounge were built. So that's kind of surprising, but I kind of wonder if the superintendent has wanted it and has been put off. I don't know. But for safety equipment, I would tend to say we should
I
support
agree.
the safety of the department, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion that we recommend Article 22?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll
Jamie,
second.
and you'll second, okay. Janet? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So Article 23, to vote to transfer and appropriate $1,500 from line 163 to be added to line 154, new water building principal. So this was the correction that we talked about last night. This seems straightforward. Do I have a motion that we approve Article 23?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Jamie?
A second.
Peter, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Article 24 is the partner to that for the interest. So do I have a motion that we recommend Article 24?
I'll make the motion.
Janet, do I have a second?
No second.
Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. So Article 25, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $10,000 from line 163 to be used by the water superintendent for the purpose of developing standard operating procedures. Talked about this again last night. We either pay $10,000 here or we pay it to the environmental, DEP, whatever. So, do I have a motion that we recommend Article 25?
I make the motion.
Larry? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jamie? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate the sum of $20,000 from line 163 to be added to line 150, maintenance and expenses of Article 6, for total appropriation of 475,000.
I don't think this is appropriate to take it from this line item. Because this was where they were covering the consultants that came in. And I really think it should come out of wages and their overtime line.
I agree.
I
And they
mean, they're-
should have money.
There were 2 full-time employees that are no longer being paid.
Mm-hmm.
The hours that she quoted us were every other weekend and 20 hours during the week. So I just don't understand why it can't be covered. And again, it's the water interest loan was not to pay for employees'
Yeah,
expenses. So
I would agree with that.
I understand it needs to be funded.
Mhm.
I mean, if we don't approve this, can they move money? Or do we go back to them and tell them they need to rewrite this, suggest they rewrite this article?
There's not enough time to rewrite the article, that there can be a motion that could move the money in a up or down, so, 20,000. Mostly the moderator would only allow something less than 20,000. We did, in the fiscal team meetings, we did express concern that, I know last year, I think it was in June, they came in with an interdepartmental transfer, chapter 4433B transfers that your board and the selectmen have to sign off on, and these are interdepartmental transfers that fall within their perimeter, and they did come in last year for a transfer. I forget what line it was from, and I know that the message I got from the selectmen, don't expect to come in for a transfer in May or June to the selectmen or finance committee, get everything on the table, because you're gonna go to town meeting. We want the townspeople to approve these, so alternatively, they could do that, come in for a transfer, probably on how frequently the FinCom will meet in May and June after town meeting, but selectmen meet pretty regularly, and then usually meet once or twice a year to do it on a bi-weekly basis or something like that, if we needed to do that.
Well, I'd rather do that than take it out of the wages and overtime.
The other side of the coin is, if they come in and get to 20,000 and don't need to spend it all, just refers back to this article and stays in the article. If you put it in the wages and they don't spend it all, they get to keep it.
But I thought anything at the end of the year went to free cash.
Mhm.
Any line items that aren't spent goes to free cash.
This is actually moving from the interim loan to the expense line, so that it will come out as free cash on that one. This one won't appropriate to an article.
Okay. But if it's in the wage line, they'll find a way to spend it.
Well, that's why we're
Right,
trying to
that would
avoid
be
them
the
from
reason.
spending it.
Right, but it's in the wage line. That's what you're
So we're
saying.
moving it out of wage.
To expense.
We're suggesting that it move out of wages and overtime into this
Right.
expense line.
Because they could get 20,000 and then somehow still spend the wage line. But
Right.
there should be plenty of wages for
Mm.
the coverage that they
So
need to
there
pay
is
for.
some-
Well, yes, and additionally, that's what I said, that they should take them, in theory, when we did have to go to contract services, and we had to discuss this with the union, because it's bargaining and work, that there'd be concern that there could be short in the expense budget because of the other expenses related to the garage project, that the selectmen identified last fall. So having said that, we didn't think we could afford a private company to come in and do this work. So we thought we could move money from wages to expenses
Mhm.
to cover the cost. And it was represented to me that perhaps there's not enough in the wage line. I haven't seen the balances on what exactly is there, because I know we've had vacancies in a full-time 40-hour-a-week administrative assistant, primary and secondary, for several weeks.
That's why it would be useful to have, like on these things, like if you know what the spent to date is, instead of saying appropriation for FY13 is this, I mean, it to me, that doesn't mean anything, because what happens if you're way underspend on your appropriation, what happens if you overspend? But if you know what your spend to date is, then you
Well, we
can
do-
compare, we know what you have in your budget left over, and then you know if,
We did
No.
get the March balances, I didn't bring
Right.
mine with me
you
tonight, but
do
it,
have-
that should, I don't have it with me tonight, but we did get those.
okay.
We can hold off on this one. We're gonna have to come back and vote at another night on the water department budget, so why don't we hold on this one?
Well, can I ask a question? If we, on the warrant, can we make a recommendation?
You understand how the recommendation works?
Yes, I can.
Well, can we, I guess, not make a recommendation, but can we say what we would like to see?
You've got two options. The finance committee can recommend
Yep,
or not recommend,
and that's it.
and that's it.
And we can't provide any commentary on
But
why
we could,
we're...
we
Well, you
could
can certainly
propose an
explain
amendment.
Why you're not recommending it.
But we could,
But-
we could propose an amendment like we did last year, couldn't we?
Yeah, anybody can do that. I mean, as long as you're registered voter of the town of Rowley in town meeting, you can do that. But what happens is, at that point, if you don't recommend it, then the water department needs to stand up and sell it to the voters.
Mhm.
And then the voters make the final decision, one way or the other,
Mhm.
whether it goes or doesn't go.
Well, I personally think we should not recommend it and propose a replacement article.
I'm not sure we can get a replacement
You
article.
can't get a
But
replacement.
from the
Uh,
floor,
um,
like we did
but,
last...
An amendment.
An amendment,
That we'll
okay.
propose from the floor.
Suppose that can happen.
And so you'd have some type of amendment, and you'd make a motion to make an amendment of some form or fashion, and the moderator would have to rule on that within the guidelines of
Yeah.
the town meeting bylaw and town meeting time, which is the handbook for the moderator.
Okay.
But your amendment basically would be, instead of line 163, it would be whatever line the wages are.
In overtime.
Right.
So,
I don't even know last year if they had it broken out between wages and overtime. I think they just had one line.
No, there was a new,
Yeah.
That was a new breakout
yes,
this year.
this year, we wanted that out there.
So it would
Yeah.
just be one line wages.
from the wages of last year's article.
I don't know what is available in that account now. I do know there was some discussion with the board that the rationale, that the way they were looking at it was to not touch the wage and overline in the wage and overtime, excuse me, in the hopes that they would be hiring people and still have that money available.
But
That
if
was
they,
their rationale.
but if they hire people and they no longer need to pay the engineering firm that is providing the
Correct.
coverage right now, so then they just continue to pay those wages to.
Plus, if they ran, worst case scenario, they hire someone and at the end they don't have enough money, couldn't they request a transfer from another line to fund it? I mean, is that possible, Debbie?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking for the balances, I know.
Well,
Um,
I have the match, 315,000 on the maintenance out of 400 and some thousand.
Okay, the
Please,
wages have 150,903. So currently we have one employee, and there is a seasonal employee being paid out of that. So it's 150,903. The expense balance is 139,035 dollars.
And that's as of March?
March the, yeah.
Right.
So if they hire someone, potentially you're looking at May and June. 2 people being hired for 2 months.
Yeah, if we hire somebody even, so we're middle of April right now, and we're still not at that point of even interviewing, because the priority is more to find somebody and do the background checks. The personnel department's doing. We may be close to hiring or even getting an administrative assistant candidate before the water department for interviewing, probably before the primary or secondary, but potentially middle of May, there could be an operator hired. at least one.
So if, towards the end of June, if they're running out of money in their wages, they could come in and transfer from another line item.
There would be an interdepartmental transfer. You know, initially, we said, I know, based on my, you know, discussions with various selectmen, they said, you know, there'll be no transfers, you know, I mean, not this year after what happened with the garage. So, you know, that's why we said everything needs to go on the warrant, and you know, you're gonna have to, you know, think everything through, because the selectmen, you know, were upset about the 40,000 approximately spent on the garage and, you know, offices and things like that, so, but certainly, that's an option that the FinCom could respond to, that there'd be transfers that would have to be done maybe on a bi-weekly basis.
But I mean, it looks like they'd have plenty of money to cover.
It does.
If they take 20,000 out of that, they still have 130 for, if they've hired somebody in May.
Right.
Then they have
Mhm.
only 2 months to pay. I can't imagine that they'd go through that. So Janet, do you want to draft an amendment, and we'll talk about it at the next meeting next week when we go over
Sure.
the water department budget?
So Debbie, just so I'm clear, it would be the wages and, wages water department, the line item that says 61-452-5112.
That's, if that's what you're thinking of, that would be the line, and I'd probably recommend you give Joan Peterson a call and maybe discuss that with her in advance of town meeting, so that she would be able to either, you know, do the research that she needs to see
Okay.
what would be allowed.
Okay. So next is Article 27.
So
See-
are we,
oh.
for 26, are we not recommending it?
We're not going to vote on it tonight.
Okay.
We're, we'll just cover it when we talk about your amendment.
But when are we meeting again before this gets printed?
We won't meet.
Won't.
This is
So-
the last
This
night.
is it.
So what I,
Oh, you want to vote
I'm-
just so it's printed that we don't
personally, I would
recommend?
like to vote to not recommend.
Okay. That's a good point. So do I have a motion that we vote to not recommend Article 26?
I'll make the motion.
Janet? Do I have a second?
Second.
Larry? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Okay,
Okay.
so Finance Committee does not recommend.
Yep.
Will be printed on Article 26.
And then we'll talk about the amendment next week. All right, so Article 27, see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate 25,000 from line 163 for the purpose of paying water department unemployment claims, or take any other action relative thereto. It seems like a lot of money for the months that remain in the fiscal year. Is it likely that they're gonna have unemployment claims for 25,000 for 2 months, 3 months?
Well, they probably won't have any. But
Oh.
it just
Well,
sits
we
there.
don't know that.
Yeah.
Does your experience say that this is?
Well, you know, the concern is that there is no, you know, funding set aside in the enterprise fund for unemployment right now. Apparently, they've been paying for it out of their expense budget, so it was once again trying to, you know, make that clear that they need to have that set aside.
And if they set it aside, it can't be spent on anything else but
Correct.
that?
And
Okay.
this is actually in the form of an article,
Oh,
which
okay, you just explained that.
would be able to sort of earmark that fund, this money should other things happen in the future. The unforeseen and unexpected, we would be going to that particular reserve fund in the next fiscal year if we ran out of money. So this would set that aside to handle any
Okay.
claims that would come up.
But they,
We do have it in the budget,
for 28,000 for a full year.
but this would be also for this fiscal year and beyond, so, and possibly, the bottom
so
line is
it's-
these funds can only be used for unemployment should they come up, and certainly can be transferred out at a future town meeting, if needed for other areas of the enterprise fund.
So, but it would take an article to move it to free cash, or to move it to the
Yes, it would not, the water board would not be able to access this for any other reason, strictly for unemployment, and then at town meeting, if there's ever a need to transfer it anywhere else, it could be used other places, it does lock it in.
So it's 25,000 in this article, and then is the
28.
28 for
in
the rest of the,
in-
for the full year.
And that probably is more than needed, but we were trying to complete this budget and do some estimating, and we wanted to make sure that they did have funds in there, in case that they're needed for any particular reason.
I just hate to see it locked into this. I'd rather see it go to,
keeping the rates down.
well,
Or-
or like for the membrane or,
Yeah.
And we could even transfer it out at the fall town meeting, part of it, portion of it, to the stabilization as well.
yeah.
That it was not necessary at that point.
Yeah, I'd like to see those the stabilization in particular be built rather than earmarking for unemployment, but. So I guess, I don't know if that's just a recommendation to the water department for future years, that this account be looked at and excess funds be moved to, capital stabilization.
What did I can't remember now what we put for unemployment for the town.
It's out through
It's in
13,000.
here.
And I rarely go over that. We did have an active claim. And I'm not sure at this point. We may be able to make it to the end of the year. It depends if, in the nature of the position, if it's a part-time.
Sorry, what did you say
We appropriate 13,000.
13,000 for the whole town?
Yes, and we've had a couple of transfers in some years where we've had some active claims. We've had to go and get transfers. In some years, there's nothing.
I don't know. In view of that, it just seems like a lot of money to tie up. I agree with you. If the town only needs 13,000, it
Yeah.
seems like we should either approve the 25,000 here or the 28,000 in their budget. That's
Mhm.
already a lot more than the whole town is setting aside.
There's nothing in this fiscal year that is one concern.
But they have expense, they have lump sum expense. Budget.
That's correct, and, but the budget that the selectmen approved for fiscal 13 didn't have anything listed there. and,
Right.
And, alternatively, if there is any claims that come down or claims, then we would have to do an interdepartmental transfer May and June if there was not enough money in the expense line.
Yeah, as of March, there was 139,000. I'm
You
not
know.
sure what their,
Potentially, we could come in
Right.
May and June if there are claims and meet with the selectmen and the FinCom and transfer from one of the available budget lines in the water enterprise, system, and handle it on a monthly basis for the remainder of the fiscal year. So that's an option as well.
Do we want to vote to not recommend?
I personally think 28,000. I understand that there's a risk here. But if in the past they've paid unemployment out of their operating budget or their expense budget, then it's really no different. It's sort of has been absorbed into a larger number. So if this is only for unemployment through the June 30th, I don't see a need for it.
Well, it would be through June 30th, and then this money would stay.
It would
in
actually
the-
stay
in that
there
Right.
should there be
line.
any other.
But I'm just
But-
saying, if a claim comes between now and June 30th, I don't see a need for $25,000.
I agree. Do I have a motion to not recommend this article?
I'll make the motion.
Janet? Do I have a second?
Yeah, the trouble is when you start putting building budgets on things that you really don't spend on, then you base that budget on the following year, and then, and then you really, have very big surpluses, and then you start, if the water department has, include their rate. So you pay, you might be
Yeah.
paying higher rate than you really might need to.
Another thing, when I was
from-
looking at the rates, was that I think for every nickel increase in the rates, the bottom line adjustment was around $7,000 or so, which means that for every, we'll say $10,000,
Yeah.
that the budget increases, your rates go up by 5 to 7 cents.
Mm.
But I think
So
if
it's-
you look at the budget as it's broken out for fiscal year 14, it's recategorized and broken out into line items, but I'm not
Right.
sure overall the expenses increased. 13 to 14.
Right, but I mean, if you're putting in 28,000 and only need half of that,
Right,
you can knock the rate down by 10 cents.
right. So I think there's two issues. What's in the budget for 14 and then this article.
Right,
Yeah.
so the question
Right.
is, do they really need both? I don't think so.
Or even all of the 28. But
Right.
the first question is, do they need this 25?
My answer would be no. I
No.
mean, based on
Yeah.
discussion, I don't really know if we want to we'll get more in that area than.
So I have a motion to not recommend by Janet. Do I have a second?
I'll second that one.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Okay. So not recommended. Then the next one is Article 28, and this is not a... Oh, well,
Yeah, now we get to the tough ones.
The dogs.
I guess some money is involved. So amending the dog bylaws to change the fees. So annual license for a spayed or neutered dog is $10, and annual license for a non-spayed neutered dog is $20. And then to change some wording.
Not charge for people over 70.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, maybe that was in place before, I don't know. Timing.
Any questions, anybody?
Well, looks okay to me.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion.
Okay, Larry makes the motion to recommend. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jamie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And then Article 30, another dog bylaw law amendment.
So that was on Article 28, right, to accept the provisions of Chapter 140.
Oh, we missed
Oh,
one.
we
That's
missed-
not required, so it's.
Oh, yeah, 28, there was no money on it, so
Not required.
Well, in
Yeah.
effect, we're not charging.
If the town
Oh.
accepts the statute, you're gonna exempt
Oh, I
anyone over
see.
70,
Okay.
so they wouldn't be paying the fee, that's all. I don't know, it's,
There's
if
no
you don't think
expenses,
it-
no expenses here anyway.
Yeah,
It's not collected by the town, but it's not an expense. It's not an appropriation.
Okay,
So
so
I
we
don't
don't,
think you need to recommend it. Not that you can't,
Okay.
you can if you
Yeah.
want to, but
if you
Yeah,
if you wanna
that's it.
work and put not required, or if you'd like to.
Oh, let's recommend it.
So the article that you voted on, was that
That
28 or 29?
It was 29.
29.
Okay,
okay. You want to recommend, Larry, that you want to make a motion that we recommend Article
Right,
28?
Article 28,
Okay,
yes.
Larry, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jamie, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? All right, and then so skipping down now to Article 30. Amending Section 7 of the dog bylaw. So pickup fees are now $25.
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, so do I have a motion that we recommend this?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Janet, do I have a second?
I'll
What's the
second.
pickup fee?
If your dog's found loitering in the
If your
streets.
dog-
Oh.
If your dog gets lost and he finds it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, Article 32, oh well. I'm sorry, I'm
31?
skipping.
31?
Trying to get through. Article 31, see if the town will vote to amend Section 9. So,
It's an increase in.
changing the
in
violations, yep.
Fines.
Okay.
They've actually
Good.
fined someone though, I mean, have they really fined someone?
They
Dog?
should.
No, but do they really do it? I mean, that's my question, has it
Animal
really
control.
been?
Yeah, I believe he does, I'm not sure, I don't have a report on that. He may have it in the town report. But,
Okay, do I have a motion that we recommend this article?
I'll make that motion.
Jamie, any
I'll second it.
second? Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. Now, Article 32, our last one.
For this.
To see if the town will vote to amend Section 10 of the dog bylaw. So, changing impounding, pickup, and boarding fees from 15 to 25.
I'll make a recommendation.
Okay, Janet,
No, second it.
Larry seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? All right. Okay, we're through one of them. So, moving on to the annual town meeting. So, Article 4 is the first money one. And oh, so we had voted for the surveyor of highways, so you'll put the
yes, I,
figure
um,
of,
Need to
okay.
add that in,
Okay.
at 55,000
50,
as you
yep.
recommended.
Yep, so everything looks fine to me. Do I have a motion that we recommend Article 4?
I'll
Could
make-
I ask one question?
Oh,
What's
yeah.
going on with the tree warden? Wasn't that,
It's still vacant at this point, so the selectmen, under the same statute, would
They'll
appoint
appoint someone.
somebody to
Okay.
fill it to the next election.
all right, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion that we recommend Article 4?
I'll make that motion.
Jamie, do I have a second?
You have to excuse
I'll
yourself,
second.
don't you?
Um,
Go board us.
Oh,
okay,
I recuse myself.
sorry.
Excuse me.
I didn't
I
even
withdraw
think about
that. Thank you.
Okay, so Jamie is recusing.
All right,
I'll make the motion then.
So Larry
and I'll stay second.
and Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
So four ayes. All right.
Took me test too.
Oh, Article 5 will be the omnibus, so we've
So-
already
So
gone
that's
through
the,
that.
you voted on to
Yep.
recommend that, and you have this, I gave the spreadsheet yesterday in draft form, so I plug in the.
Oh, you want us to go? just-
No, you don't, if you
Okay.
want, what I'll do is I type up a motion, and the town accountant and I will get it ready for you for
Okay.
town meeting. It will be the total budget line in that spreadsheet.
Yeah,
That I have to put
Okay.
into this.
okay,
So I'll write that you recommend the town budget.
okay.
Is there a reason for that F column that the finance committee recommends on all of that? Does that,
Is it so
Sort of.
legally,
oh, okay.
you, you may recommend a different amount than what the requester is presenting
I see.
for appropriation.
Okay, so Article 6 is the Water Department budget, which we'll defer to the next meeting.
So I will type Finance Committee recommendation from the floor.
Yep, and the same with Article 7.
Okay.
Article 8 was to create the Water Department Stabilization Fund, which we've talked about. Makes sense. They need to be putting money
Right,
aside,
we certainly
so.
recommend it.
Yeah, so do I have a motion that we recommend Article 8?
I'll make,
Go ahead.
the motion.
Larry?
that we-
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Janet. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then Article 9 is to vote to transfer the sum of $344,050 from the Water Department free cash to the stabilization fund. Do I have a motion that would recommend this?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Jamie. And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Larry. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Any nays? Okay. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to appropriate income from sales of electricity. Oh, so the explanatory note, Articles 10 through 13 are standard annual articles.
Yeah, I make the motion that we accept them.
Okay,
Are you 10 through 13?
10 through
Right.
13.
Okay.
And they're standard, so.
Okay, so Larry is making the motion that we recommend 10 through 13. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No? Okay. Then Article 14 is to see if the town will authorize these revolving funds, Council on Aging, Board of Health, Parks and Recreation. Oh, wow, I won't read them all. Et cetera, et cetera. And this is a standard article. Any questions on it?
No.
So, do I,
I think I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
oh, because it has, okay. So, Jamie
I'll make the
recusing?
motion.
Okay, Larry makes a motion that we recommend this article. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
So 4 ayes. Then Article 15, to see if the town will vote to authorize the use of a revolving fund by the 375th Anniversary Committee, into which donations and receipts from these activities should be deposited. So we talked about this earlier tonight. Do I have a motion that we recommend Article 15?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Jamie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate $53,439 from the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust Septic Betterment Loan Program, to pay the debt service on the town's loan from the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust.
Is this something that doesn't appear in the budget at all?
That's right. This is administered through the health department. Any individual in town that has a septic system that's been compromised or needs to be, or they're gonna sell their house, they can apply for a low-interest loan through the town. It's funded through the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust.
So is this amount of money that was collected from people who
Yeah,
utilized the loan?
that's right.
Actually, the original loan was from the state, and then the town, through the treasurer's office, loans it out, and then the people pay it back and it gets reappropriated to be loaned out again.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect our bottom line?
No.
The
No.
bottom line?
This
Okay.
is just a service to the community, administered through the town, as an alternative to going to the bank or something.
Okay. So do,
But who pays for the 53,000? That's coming from this loan program?
That's
From the
right.
trust.
Okay,
The original loan was $1,050,000.
okay, so that was through, all right.
so do I have a motion that we recommend Article 16?
I'll make that motion.
Jamie? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Larry? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 2014 annual revenues, the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, listed below. Oh, okay, so this is setting aside the required 10%, 10%, 10%, 5%. Do I have a motion that we recommend Article 17?
I'll make that motion.
Jamie, do I have a second?
A second.
Janet? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay.
I don't understand that. This, you were talking about Article 17, right?
Yeah.
These 10%'s 10% of the total of what? Of what?
The income for this year.
And how much was the income this?
Thank you.
But it's required by law, by the statute, to set aside 10% for affordable housing, open space. and-
Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to see if the numbers made sense. I mean, if these numbers, I mean, I don't know, I'm looking at numbers, I mean, I understand 10, 10, 10, 5, but so 10, 10, 10, that would be 450,000 plus 5%, 7,506.
It's right here. Okay, so Raleigh expects to realize 453 from real estate receipts and 30% matching funds. The Community Preservation Act, 10%, equaling approximately $15,012 for each area.
Okay, so this would be like 450,000, and this would be,
And that set aside can only be used on those three categories, each one.
450.
Before we can only do the affordable housing.
Yeah, one question, the debt service on the Brad Street farm,
I guess that,
198,000?
Number looks
Principal and
close.
interest.
Hmm?
Principal and interest.
Is that total for the whole thing, or just for the 1 year?
Just for the year.
It's this year.
That's a year.
This physical year.
Mhm. Is that just the farm that was sold? Or what? I don't
No,
understand
it was
that.
the property.
It's
that
the
was
whole
purchased.
property?
Property that
Okay,
was purchased,
Okay.
102 acres.
okay.
Are we good to move on?
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
So Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate this.
Did we approve that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we did. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to be deposited into the other post-employment benefits trust. Now, this is taken from free cash, isn't it?
That's right.
Oh,
It's available in the free cash or in the levy as a whole, it's available for
oh, okay,
expenditure.
okay. Okay. Do I have a motion that we recommend this article? Or are there any questions? No?
Mhm. I'll make the motion.
Okay. So
Second.
Jamie, seconded by Janet. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $200,000 to the stabilization fund.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Janet and Larry, all in favor of recommending Article 19?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. 20 is a zoning. 21 is zoning. 22 is zoning. Wow. 23 is zoning. 24 is zoning. So all the rest do not require a finance committee vote. Yay!
So, but I have a general question. How much money is in these dusty articles that have been around for years that have money in them that's not being used?
There's a list in the town report.
There is?
Yeah, from last year's town report in 2012.
And I can get
Or
you the
2011
updated,
would be
I can
the
get
last
you the
report.
updated list, because
Okay.
we were looking at that as part of
There's only one you can't touch.
And which one's that?
you don't know.
Oh, okay.
What?
Oh, well, Nancy.
Oh.
It's been there since '76. It's $200,
Sentimental?
yes.
Okay.
I got it passed so we could refurbish it for the bicentennial,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't really need it. I got the stuff volunteered, so. And it's been sitting there, and there's been a couple of times they've tried to take it. And I have to get up at town meeting and explain why they can't have it.
Okay.
Okay, so anybody have any updates from their boards or any further discussion? Okay. Our next meeting is next Wednesday at 7:15. So we'll plan to go over the water department budget and also the water department related articles that we bypassed. And if there's time, we need to also have time to go through and divvy up who wants to speak to which section, and we should maybe have Joan come and
Okay.
just rehash. I mean, I like the way we did it last year, as long as that didn't cause any issues, that we just
No,
did,
I think
we
it's
read
good,
the high level
Right.
budget
Mhm.
number for each section
That's
of
right.
the omnibus budget, rather than reading it line by line.
That's right, so I'll see if I can have her come into the meeting next week to kind of go over
Okay.
things, would that be good, or?
Sure.
And maybe if you want to have her scheduled for a certain time so that you can then continue deliberations on the other things, maybe have her come in at 7:15 and
Yeah,
talk
why
about
don't
it.
we, if she can make it at
Um,
7:15, why don't we start
and
with
then-
her and then we'll talk about our.
You don't need any scheduled appointments, you just would like to discuss as a board?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was also going to ask if we could add the item about the personnel board, maybe having a temporary or interim
Oh, okay.
representative from the FinCom
Yep,
appointed, because of Jack's absence, and he hasn't been able to make it to those
Yep.
meetings.
okay. Okay. So, it is 9:27. Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
I like the motion.
Larry? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Janet, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
So, when are we meeting again?
Next one.